One advantage of the DAPP network is that if you learn to use oracles on one chain, and then for some reason, that chain gets shut down, it gets terribly attacked, there's some massive bug, whatever, I don't know, political reasons, you move to another chain, the tools you're familiar with are still there for you. And if a base layer protocol solves one of these issues that we're solving, it says, hey, we've got native oracles now. That's great. That's okay. Now the DAPP network can be used for other services, and those other services can use the new base layer oracles. Whatever, it's fine. The DAPP network will grow with the world rather than like issue a product, and if somebody comes out with a competing product, oh no.
What's up, everybody? We had Pete Keay on from LiquidApps this week. We discussed the suite of services and products that LiquidApps develops for the DAPP network. We discussed Pete's thoughts on innovation within crypto, and even talked about some of the reasons that Voice, the new social media app from EOS, could be a major solution to some of the more centralized social media platforms. As always, nothing we say should be considered financial advice. Let's get it. Had a nice Layer 1 live yesterday with Dimitri, and of course, as always, here with my main man Q. How you doing?
What's going on, everybody? This is another episode of Layer 1, like we're talking about. We have one of our favorite people in all of crypto as a guest today, so we're gonna have a good time. I know the guy's first thought is that we're Layer 1, and this is gonna be a talk about Layer 2 and some middleware talk, so we don't discriminate at all. We have the famous Wittgenstein, Pete Keay. How you doing, Pete?
Doing great. Good to see you guys again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Pete was at ICOAlert with us, and we'll get into that discussion, obviously, but it is a great week to have LiquidApps on in the DAPP network. Pete is the Swiss Army knife, as you like to say, or the content communication and education head over there at LiquidApps. So we're happy to have Pete on. Pete, we always start this episode with how you kind of found yourself in crypto, and even before that, we kind of want to get your ethos as a person, as well as someone who's found crypto and how that kind of guides you in your day-to-day life. So if you could start out by just talking about your background before crypto, and we'll make our way to ICOalert and then make our way to LiquidApps.
Yeah, sure. As a kid, I loved coding, and it's not true of everyone, but I was in advanced computing classes and writing little games on GW Basic and things like that. My first game was a game where you thought of an animal and the computer guessed the animal. And it was really bad at first. It only knew like fish and bird, but then it would learn over time. I tinkered around, and in college, I did the same thing. I worked at the computer laboratories. I worked at computer classes. I graduated and started working for small businesses, system engineers, web design, stuff like that. And then I took a bit of a hiatus and did orphan work and volunteer work. I just figured I didn't want to sit in front of a computer for the rest of my life. Now I'm fine with that, but I shipped off to places all around the world, like Russia and India, and worked there, and really, I guess, picked up a passion for the underprivileged and underserved people in the world. I mean, I say orphans in particular, but there are a lot of other groups as well. And we like to pretend that people have the same opportunity, that they all have equal opportunity, but some people just frankly don't have the same opportunity that other people have. And so I picked up a heart for those people and came back in 2014. 2011 or so, and heard about Bitcoin and actually mined Litecoin for a little bit. But it was this perspective of like, wow, I can make free money on my computer.
Right.
Oh wow, I made 50 cents today, and immediate conversion to dollars, which is a terrible decision. But I'm sure there were lots of other people doing the same exact thing, right? You're thinking, wow, I could just generate money, and then I can go buy food or whatever. But I continued in tech, and had a little startup that was a tech startup, and started working in content as well, doing IT content translation, things like that. And then bumped into ICOalert. I know we fast forwarded a couple of years there, but we thought it was a good match. I came over, moved out to Pittsburgh, started working with you guys. And initially, I think I started working as not a salesperson, like a client. a client associate or whatever.
Yeah, something it was is very
so like
very Swiss Army knife, just like
writing the emails.
Yep.
Writing the emails. But then eventually, we had projects at ICOAlert that were great. Sadly, it wasn't the best time to be in the ICO business. the end of 2018.
It was the best of times and the worst of times. Right?
so we had a lot of good times all around, a lot of learning, a lot of fun, and then we closed up shop.
What do you remember most about those times? ICOalert.
Oh man, it's a mix between just like the fun times, like going playing some games. We didn't fold because we played games, I don't think, but playing games, going to Fed Gallery, and like hanging out, doing some stuff, and just the very chill atmosphere that I think allowed all of us to get along really well, like we do, and accomplish a lot of things. And I also really liked hashing out ideas with people, and some of those ideas they kind of grew into the things we did after ICOalert. But we were trying to come up with ways that the company could make money, and sitting around and coming up with ideas, or as Ryan would say, ideating. We would sit around and ideate. And even though those things didn't really pan out for us at the point we're at, it was a really great time to get to know people and interact with people and encounter a lot of new ideas.
Yeah, for sure. I think your point about kind of so many of those ideas blooming into other things is definitely very true now. With Ryan's at Tron, you're at LiquidApps. We're doing this, and everybody's kind of dispelled into the world of crypto after the first foray. So everybody out there listening, I promise we won't talk about ICOalert the whole time here. We'll definitely get into LiquidApps, which is what people certainly care about. But before we get there, going back even before ICOalert, when you were talking about some of the orphan work that you did and some of the travel that you did, especially in those countries that were, not necessarily second or third world, but at least kind of weren't as advanced as maybe the US is, Ukraine, India, right? Did you see any real use cases for crypto at that point, that when you found crypto later, you were like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense?
Yes, but we're not there yet. Just one example. I worked for a while at an orphanage, and the director was just a crook, but he had power. You couldn't call him out on it, or no one would ever be able to visit the orphanage again. Right? He would just shut it off. As it was, we had to give multi-$1,000 bribes to just come and help the orphans. And they had like a room with clothes to the ceiling, but the kids were running around in Crocs in winter and like one pair of underwear, they just wouldn't dish them out. And meanwhile, the director had this complex that was like, it was a house. It was another house that was for foster kids, where he kept kids so the government would pay him, but then he sent them back to the orphanage when no one was looking. And then he had a bar, a cafe, and a hair salon, and an apiary, and like all this stuff that everyone knew he couldn't get that on a director's salary. That was one of my early interactions with someone who was working in volunteer work, but was intensely corrupt, right? And so I think that accountability and transparency could really help a situation like that. The problem in blockchain generally is that last mile, right? You can build a product that gets money from Q over here, who's donating money, right? Gets money to, like, through multiple stages, through multiple people, and gets it to the scene. But you can't like ensure that the person in charge actually gives water to the thirsty child. We still haven't solved that last mile problem. And maybe it's not really solvable, but I think that either way, we can definitely bring more accountability, more transparency, more honesty to the space with these products.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a realistic way to look at it. And, moving on here to LiquidApps a little bit, right? You guys, as you said before the podcast, are ones that have built essentially before you've marketed. I think that's the right way to do it. I hope that's how most tech companies do it, but a lot of people in crypto are obviously kind of jaded from ICO times, or jaded from times when marketing was kind of step one and building was step two. So to date, right, for those who haven't heard about LiquidApps, or for those who haven't heard about the DAPP token, how does this ecosystem kind of all work together? What is it that you guys have built, and what is it exactly that is LiquidApps?
LiquidApps invented the DAPP Network. Now, the DAPP Network has lots more community members now, like Blockstart, which just released a product called DAPP Account, and Multiblock, Airdrop Stack, and numerous DAPP service providers around the world, EOS Nation, all parts of this community. But LiquidApps invented the DAPP Network, and the DAPP Network is a universal multi-chain middleware. It doesn't care what blockchain you're on, although it hasn't actually connected to every blockchain, but in principle it can. It doesn't care what blockchain you're on, and it's a middleware of all the services you need as a developer. If I'm building an app, I need multiple little services for my app. Maybe I need to get information from sources on the web. Maybe I need random numbers, which is actually really hard to do in a blockchain context, because everyone on the network needs to, would have to generate the same random number, which doesn't make sense. Maybe I need to talk to other blockchains. Maybe I want to run applications like Dockers in a decentralized way. Maybe I want to have an SQL database, a SQL database, which I can't have right now on blockchain platforms, right? And maybe I need all these kind of services, which traditionally are provided by companies like AWS, Amazon Web Services, and Microsoft Cloud, which is now Azure. And these are marketplaces, if you will, of all the services you could need for your app in order to focus on building your app and not building all these services all over again from scratch. In fact, I think that's one of the reasons the ICO boom fizzled so badly, not only because there was a lot of hype and just marketing without substance, but also because you remember every project was promising a new scalable blockchain or a new marketplace or a new, I don't know, Oracle or trading system or whatever. It's almost like every project was trying to build every component they would need rather than using a shared component that's being developed by way more people. It's way more vetted. They don't have to waste millions of dollars and man hours on building their own Oracle solution if they can already access one in a universal middleware. That's what the DAPP network is. It's a universal, decentralized, and we'll talk about how later, middleware that provides apps the services they need. Free accounts, storage, cheaper resources, computation. We have a chess app that we deployed that's a sample of running AI on the blockchain. Okay, that sounds heavy. It sounds dumb, but we figured out how to do it in a distributed way that doesn't require intense resources. It's things like that, these basic services that apps of various industries need. And the DAPP network provides them so that they can be used universally across blockchains, across apps.
Yeah, that's super interesting because what you've seen over 2019 and in 2020 is kind of saying, hey, what do these DAPP developers need, right? And you guys have gone out and created these products, these services. So as far as those services that you just touched on, I'm looking at some right now. You have that Zeus software development kit. You got Liquid Accounts, Liquid Link, all of these really interesting services that we can dive into. But what have been the most successful services that you've seen on launch? And what are some that you think maybe a lot of developers aren't using that might be undervalued?
Right. The first service that was launched was VRAM. It was actually launched before, I think, the white paper, maybe not, but it was definitely launched before the token sale began. We actually had a product before the sale. The sale's over. It was a successful token sale in 2019, which I think is saying something, but we had a product out first. That was VRAM. Now, VRAM is very specific. It's for EOS, right? EOS.io apps. If you're storing all your data for your app and you have lots of data, you don't want to store it all in states. In other words, in the RAM on these block producers' machines, because there's no way that a single machine can hold all the data for all the applications that you want to run on this thing. So VRAM was a virtual RAM storage solution. And that's been our most used product so far. It's easy to use, and I don't think that's because it's the most useful necessarily or the most interesting, but it was the first one out. And so it's been around for longer. I would love to see Liquid Oracles see more use. People get hyped up about products like Chainlink, and Liquid Oracles has a number of advantages over Chainlink. And it's seen a little bit of use, but I think it could be used even more because there are DeFi apps and other applications out there, dApps out there that need Oracle data, API data, price data, whatever data. And they're getting it in a centralized way right now. which means that if their oracle's compromised, and sometimes that's silly, like if you're playing Mario, no one's going to bother, but sometimes that's significant. If you're running a hundreds of millions of dollars DeFi bank, then someone will want to try to game it by compromising your oracle. So I think that that's a powerful and flexible solution that people haven't put enough research into.
Yeah, and it certainly hasn't gotten enough focus. We just had Synthetics on the podcast, and Kane over there did a good job of talking about some of the issues that they've run into in the past with price feeds coming in slightly delayed and people being able to kind of front run those when trading. But in looking at what Chainlink has done, and obviously, they've had fantastic success. I think they have up to 25 oracles deployed on Ethereum now across DeFi and other apps. What are some of those advantages that the liquid oracles present over a Chainlink setup?
I'll skip some of the more technical advantages. You can look at an article called Liquid Oracles and Chainlink Better Together, where we actually say you could use them together, but it talks about some tech advantages. But one of the major advantages is that there's no gatekeeper vetting process. If I'm a dev and I need a website to, like I need to grab information from a website, I can just put it in my smart contract to get information from that website using liquid oracles and do it in a customizably trustless and redundant way. And I can even set like the logic that determines whether I want to accept the results or not, like the verification standards for my application, right? And I can say, I want to go get Pittsburgh Penguins sports scores from this place or from these places. And I don't have to set up a specific chain link to connect to those. It's a different way of doing things. You see Chainlink will come out with like specific, hey, we just connected Bitcoin with Chainlink. Well, you can already do that with liquid oracles. Hey, we just connected, I don't know, they random number generation, right? We use random.org. Well, you can do that with liquid oracles, but you can also access anything else without going through this sort of centralized review and approval and setup process for each specific oracle. So it's a different model than Chainlinks, and I think it's a superior model.
We have this debate all the time, I feel like, at Sutler Ventures, but obviously you have application layer projects and you've got protocol layer projects. You guys add that third component of kind of that middleware that connects the two and makes it more efficient in these things. But I do want to get your kind of opinion on where you think value accrue, because obviously there's some people that heavily invest in application layer projects and they say this is where kind of the value is going to accrue, kind of like traditional tech where you have Facebook and you have Instagram and all these applications that have gained value over the years, whereas blockchain kind of flips that, right? Like people invest in EOS and people invest in like the base layer protocols and they think that's kind of where the value will accrue. I kind of want to take your understanding there of where you think the value will accrue.
Sure. With that standard, not financial advice disclaimer, don't interpret anything I say as that. And I'll try to be careful anyway. We don't know how Web 3.0 is going to pan out as far as where the value accrues necessarily. If we look at web, the previous iteration of the web, there's a lot of value at the application layer, right? There's also a lot of value at the middleware layer, like Amazon Web Services. Amazon, when you think Amazon, people tend to think the store. Amazon Web Services, though, doesn't make more income, actually makes more revenue, like more profits. More of the profits year over year at Amazon are from their web services side. They could lose their entire marketplace and be fine. Amazon Web Services is huge. And other cloud services as well. They have a lot of value because applications and this whole app wave, everything needs these services, and they need deployment solutions, and they need data storage solutions. They need all sorts of things. And then there's the protocol layer where arguably not so much value has accrued, right? If you look at the stock market for the internet space, you're looking at tickers for companies that are at the application layer or at the middleware layer. You're not really looking at like the dominating company of TCP/IP. That doesn't mean that that's going to be the same in Web 3.0, however, because in Web 3.0, we're not just like the internet right now is just kind of for data. There's no internet of money, as Antonopoulos says. There's no way to trustlessly transfer value before Bitcoin, right? now we're revolutionizing the whole basis of the internet with Web 3.0 with these incentivized protocols. And so maybe things will look quite a bit different. Maybe protocols will capture a lot of value. I know I'm giving you a non-answer here, but I think that there's argument for all three, and just be careful out there, because people tend, like, this is going to be the next big thing and pile into it heavy. Times when we make decisions trying to predict the future, we end up wrong. So hedge your bets. That's like straight up financial advice, right? Be careful. I think I could say be careful. Right. And you don't know the future. So I'm excited about what the future is going to bring. I think Web 3.0 is going to be amazing. I think, like you said, there's going to be a lot of value all over the place. Where it's concentrated has yet to be seen. We're still pretty early.
Yeah, there's really no reason, I guess, why value can accrue everywhere, right? Within kind of the Web 3.0 stack, and as you kind of see winners and losers appear and disappear, I'm sure people's thesis will change over time. You mentioned on the VRAM product that you all offer, it's been a big hit. It's obviously focused on EOS, right? And the LiquidApps brand within the EOS community, within the EOS ecosystem, is pretty strong. It's very impressive what you guys have done to really bring strong tech, really bring strong products to the EOS ecosystem. How have you guys gone about that, and why was EOS kind of the first destination for your products? Understanding there are many other layer one chains out there.
Our founders were familiar with EOS. That's one thing. But then I think more importantly, EOS was at a point where it could be used for products like this immediately. If you're a listener, you might be a fan of Ethereum over EOS for reasons, I don't know, philosophical reasons, reasons of like number of developers, community reasons, personal reasons, whatever reasons. But at that time, EOS could deliver half-second actions that could support a lot of transactions and support. It was the infrastructure that we needed to offer these middleware services to dApps and say, hey, you can build on an EOS.io DAPP Network stack, and you can offer a scalable application now. Now they're busy building, and the app I would point to, I guess, as using that stack is Moonlighting, which we've talked about a lot. Moonlighting is a traditional company. I think they were founded in 2014, and they had the top app for jobs in the App Store for a while. So they had some success, and they decided to start moving components of their business onto the blockchain. The first one was worker history for users. So it's a freelancer gig app, kind of like Upwork or Fiverr. It's you go on as a freelancer, you get jobs. And to a freelancer, it's very important that their work history would be good and safe, right? I was on Upwork previously, and my penchant for getting banned from services. I got banned from Twitter while I was at ICOAlert. It's still suspended. I have a new one now. Don't tell Twitter or they'll ban it. But I also got kicked from Upwork for a reason that I know about, but it wasn't fair. And my work history was just destroyed because it's gone, right? These platforms, they're free enterprises. Yeah, you can say they have rights to do what they do, and risk mitigation and all that. But a lot of people are relying on these platforms for their livelihood. And in this case, it was a mistake that there was no appeal for it. And, at least I should have had my record of like working for specific clients, and, they said, oh, hey, job well done. And, you worked this many hours. At least that record should be immutable, Moonlighting decided, so that freelancers can be assured that they have their work history into the future, right? Imagine if you suddenly weren't allowed to put anything on your resume anymore, and you had to go look for a job with like starting from square one, right? That wouldn't be very pleasant. And so that's what Moonlighting did. And now whenever you go into Moonlighting, I think it's only deployed in certain areas of the world, but it's 750,000 users, something like that. And you make changes to your worker profile, they're immortalized on the blockchain using VRAM, which is still on chain. So that's the first component. And they were only able to do that, right? We see these corporations putting $5 to $10 million into blockchain research, trying to get around the scalability problem. Moonlighting was only able to do that because of DAPP Network technology. In fact, CoinDesk said that it took their costs down from $10,000 a day to around $2 a day in terms of just storage. And that's from a CoinDesk piece on it.
Wow.
So we're looking to enable these kind of things to happen, like where if a corporation or a company or a group or Q and Mike want to build a blockchain app and they want to be able to scale it, they can do it. They can focus on their app. They have the flexibility they need. They have the scalability they need to deploy. We're aiming for mass adoption just like everyone else.
So as you guys look into the future, then understanding the success that you've had on EOS, what are some other layer one chains out there that maybe have similar issues that you guys are looking at, or at least thinking about at this point?
Well, we've already deployed for EOS.io chains. It's up to those chains to adopt it, right? LiquidApps can't just move in and say, all right, you guys are getting DAPP Network, like it or not, necessarily. But it's up to those other chains to adopt it, which is a pretty easy process. And we launched on EOS.io chains. A community member just deployed on a Wax testnet like yesterday. And Wax has announced their intentions to add DAPP Network at the base layer as well. So we've made it easier for EOS.io chains. And we did demo like an interaction between EOS and Ethereum a number of months ago. There was a video that went out on Twitter where we have an EOS smart contract talking to an Ethereum smart contract, in fact, deploying smart contracts across chains, transferring some tokens, transferring some data. And it's exciting what's possible in the interoperability space. So we're definitely not limiting ourselves to EOS.io. But for now, it makes sense to, before we really focus on before we potentially really focus on having other chains that are non-EOS.io chains, that we, I guess, offer it to the EOS.io community, right?
Yeah, interoperability seems to be that like new hot term, right? You had 2019 DApps, you had ICOs, you had for 2018 and beyond, and you can keep going back there. But interoperability is kind of like this hot term for 2020. Can you kind of break down what it means to be interoperable and why it's important that we connect most blockchains within the industry? I feel like it is this hot term, but there is a lack of understanding from most people as to what interoperability actually is at the technical level, and then what it means 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Sure. Remember CryptoKitties?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. CryptoKitties clogged up the Ethereum network. Okay. Now I know if you're an Ethereum fan, you'll say, well, it was being used. But if you were a business that was starting to try to rely on Ethereum for something, which is what we want. We want businesses to adopt this stuff. If you were a business, your business ground to a halt. You couldn't do anything because CryptoKitties was clogging up the network. The same thing happened on EOS. Well, a similar thing happened on EOS recently with IDOS, which was a token that you would basically mine by spending network resources. So everyone was incentivized to DDoS the EOS network, basically. Now, those issues might be fixed. Yeah, that's great. But if you're a business, you don't want to commit to a single platform that something unknown could happen next week and you won't be able to do anything, right? If I'm running a corporation or whatever, cypher principles aside, if I'm running a corporation, I don't want to be reliant on one platform that could just get congested and, oh, well, I got to fire everyone or I can't pay paychecks, whatever. So it's my strong opinion that businesses in the future, and we're already seeing them doing this, will want to have their own chains. And it's more nuanced than just having a separate chain. They'll want to have their own chains that they use for either for failover. So if you're on the main chain and the main chain gets clogged up, you can actually fail over to your own chain for a while. Or for like actual processing of parts of their app on their own chain, and they post to the main chain now and then as like a record, right? A notary, I guess. Or they'll want their own everything of their entire app running on their own chain, but they still want to be able to transfer value out or data out to other blockchains, right? To public blockchains. And those can be open, transparent blockchains. They can be permissioned. They can be very private blockchains, whatever. Customizable blockchains. Businesses want to deploy for projects, for their businesses, and they want them to be able to connect to these mainnet blockchains and still use the advantages of public blockchain without all the scary risks of being reliant on a single platform. You know, when AWS goes down, what happens? You remember that? how like half the internet was down in the Northeast for a day or two, something like that. That's exactly what businesses don't want. They don't want to be relying on a platform that they don't have enough control over to fix something if it goes wrong.
Got it. Yeah. So we had Polkadot on, I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. And they talked about how they had all these parachains that would then connect back to this relay chain, and kind of goes about what you were talking about there. Are there security implications with creating a chain of a chain of a chain? Just from a non-tech background, as you continue to expand chains, is there security implications that come with moving away from that main chain or that relay chain?
It depends on what you're trying to do. If you're creating a proof of work chain, then sure, a public proof of work chain, then somebody could come in with, if you had no value on the chain, someone could come in with like $500 of hardware and dominate your chain and change all your data, right? So that's why one of the solutions we actually have at LiquidApps, we have an idea called liquid chains, which we've talked about recently. And that is where your DAPP service providers become like your producers, your validators, whatever you want to call them, on your chain. So you start with a set of validators, and it's customizable. You can have it be permissioned. You don't just set up a chain where any old Joe can come in and attack you with massive amounts of hardware. It's customizable. Like I said, anywhere from totally public to totally private, and anywhere from like one producer to 1,000 producers. Maybe you're a bank and you really need the security assurances of having many, many parties validating transactions. But if you're a version of Tetris on the blockchain, you don't really need that. You don't need to be paying for 1,000 DAPP service providers to be your producers. So it's all about customizability, and the business saying, I need this amount of control, I need this amount of assurance, I need this amount of trustlessness, I need this amount of redundancy, I need this amount of cost effectiveness, and I've spun up, now there we go, I've spun up my chain for my project.
Yeah, no, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, it's almost like in that scenario that those businesses in a lot of way act as the kind of the layer 3 application. I think it's just done in a way that most people wouldn't expect through, a chain of a chain, through some sort of parachain setup or interoperable setup across multiple layer 1 protocols. So as time goes on and crypto continues to evolve and mature, I think, the narrative around store of value has pretty much cemented itself, but everything else and dApps especially are still somewhat on the fringe when it comes to the mainstream. So obviously you guys are on the front lines helping dApps and other businesses be able to build on blockchain. What do you think some of the reasons are that we haven't really kind of seen that year of the dApp yet, or at least some sort of application or major enterprise, blockchain use case or solution or game or whatnot hit the mainstream and kind of do a similar like Pokemon Go viral growth, setup?
Because the scalability solutions aren't in place yet. And UX is important as well. We have a liquid accounts project, which you can, basically people can log into blockchain applications and use them as if they're using any other application. They use a phone login, they use an OAuth login, they use a username and password. They don't ever see a private key or have to manage a wallet extension or have to use a wallet app or anything like that. In fact, their keys are generated from their details. So they control their keys, and the business can't, rob their funds or whatever. There's still the advantages of blockchain apps, but they don't know that they control their keys because their keys are generated from details, basically. And so now that's one way to do it. But there are other UX developments that we need to see that make it easier to use a blockchain app, or at least as easy, but hopefully easier to use a blockchain app than a traditional app, right? Arguably, user device is holding keys, then like have 2FA and things involved, under certain setups. But you need to make it easier, or people aren't going to use it, right? I know we used MetaMask and iWallet and scatter and stuff to bet on horses or whatever we do because we're crypto fans.
Right.
Nobody is going to do that unless there's really attractive reasons to, like maybe they can make money on it. Okay. But in general, nobody's going to do that and move away from their old apps to the new apps if they have to install the little Fox app and, you know, manage importing keys and like plug in their hardware. And no one's going to do that. We need UX, but we also need scalability. And Moonlighting, which I mentioned, only has 750,000 users on blockchain because of a beta. It was beta at the time, scalability project that we launched. There aren't that many scalability solutions out there. You can build a scalable Ethereum app right now. You can, but it's hard. It takes a lot of work, and not very many people know how to do it. We need solutions that normal app devs who they want to build a game. They don't want to learn about like, you know, plasma sidechains or whatever. You know, they want to build their game. We need solutions for them that they can say, okay, grab this, put it in my app. We're good to go. I just connected to my own chain or my Ethereum or EOS or whatever, and it's part of my app. And I didn't have to worry about figuring out scalability again.
Yeah, all very good points. I think you can tell we're kind of moving into a bull market now because people are talking about these points less and less and more worried about, you know, how new investors get in. But, you know, obviously as the tech continues to grow and continues to evolve, these problems are going to need to be solved if we do ever get to that, you know, kind of mainstream moment. So as you look out into the crypto space right now, other than LiquidApps, are there other companies or other people that really stand out as, you know, those who are solving these UX and scalability issues?
I love some of the companies that are working on Ethereum and Bitcoin. I can't speak to a lot of the other chains. It's hard to keep track of everything. I know how they work, but I don't know all the projects on them.
Sure.
Right. But there are some great experiences coming out, and they're still half baked, I guess. But some great wallets that are keyless, where like one example is on Ethereum, the wallet Argent. And you get an Argent wallet, and it sets you up, and your wallet's actually a smart contract, although you don't have to know that. And you could set a daily send limit, and you can have guardians that can help you recover your account, and it's all decentralized. So Argent can't take your money. So like I have Argent, and if my phone was completely destroyed, you know, it just exploded. Like it's not a Samsung Note 8, but you know, it just blew up. Then, you know, if my keys are just on that device and I don't have like a magic seed phrase in my head or my safe, it's, you know, I'm done. But Argent lets you use smart contracts to set a ledger or an email address, or even the company, if you want to do that, as like a recovery guardian. And if your guardians agree to let you recover to a phone, you recover. If your guardians agree to let you, and your guardians can all be you, it can be your ledger and your email, right? If your guardians agree to let you send more than your 1 ETH limit in a 24-hour period or something like that, you can do that. And they're starting to do things like plug in easy DeFi, where you could just go in and click, I want to deposit USD coin and get 6% annual interest or whatever. And I know there's risks with DeFi, but it's still cool. You go in, you hit deposit, it works. You don't have to deal with complicated dashboards and transferring funds all over the place. It's those kind of things, those kind of radical improvements in UX that are going to really help push the space forward. And we're seeing some games with liquid accounts where you go in and you just enter a user and password or whatever. You don't have to connect to Scatter or whatever. And you connect to the game and you're in. And Dapper is another one on Ethereum. They're by the same people who made CryptoKitties. And have you had them on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I thought you had them on. You know, so these companies really pushing forward usability. And again, it's on all the blockchains that they know that this is the problem and this is what they're doing. It's not a feature of Ethereum or Bitcoin or EOS. I love this trend because it's exactly what we needed. We need scalability. We need UX.
Yeah, I like the point that you made there where it was connecting Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically, because I feel like even though there's been work done on the other protocols and they've obviously gained popularity, people out in the real world, they know Bitcoin for sure. If they do know anything about crypto, they know Bitcoin definitely. So they're comfortable using an app that I see you talk about a lot, which is Lolly. That's a great example of an application that connects Bitcoin to just general people. So I do like that. I did have a just from internalizing all the information that you just talked about throughout the episode. Is there a fear maybe of working for a company that produces layer 2 software in this middleware that a layer 1 protocol could figure out the technology and then therefore not need a layer 2 to connect to layer 1? Just from a kind of an uninitiated perspective, what if EOS didn't have all these VRAM issues, or not VRAM, just the RAM issues and the CPU issues in general, and then therefore the applications did not need that layer 2? Is there kind of a question there to be answered?
Sure. That's something that people bring up now and then. And I would love to see a base layer protocol solve all these things. All of them, all of these services. But are they going to do it in a way that's going to attract all the businesses to them? If so, they deserve to get all the businesses, right? Let's say EOS develops base level oracles, base layer storage, base layer computation, base layer SQL, whatever, everything. First of all, if it's customizable enough and it suits all the business's needs and they don't have migration issues, they might all come. But then we're back in the same boat where we're relying on one platform again. We're back in the same boat where we're all relying on one thing, and the world centralizes around a single protocol and a single, even a gatekeeper, if you will. I know that ultimately the idea is to decentralize the coding and all that, but you have block one calling the shots on the tech that the entire world is going to use. That's not necessarily the future we see. We see a future where there are numerous protocols and they have various features, right? You don't need VRAM on certain protocols. You don't need liquid accounts on certain protocols because there is a different set of base layer features. And businesses can choose from among these based on their various advantages or disadvantages. And they can still, no matter where they go, use the services they're comfortable with. One advantage of the DAPP network is that if you learn to use oracles on one chain, and then for some reason, that chain gets shut down, it gets terribly attacked, there's some massive bug, whatever, political reasons, you move to another chain, the tools you're familiar with are still there for you. You don't have to learn a whole new stack. You're already busy learning some of the base layer stuff. You don't have to learn a whole new stack for how to do all these things we've talked about. So we want to provide the tools for devs no matter where they're at. And base layers will continue to evolve. And you know what? If we've seen the community build some very interesting services on DAPP Network. Liquid Crypto was a hackathon, a DAPP Network hackathon solution by Multiblock. And it's cryptographic primitives, basically crypto power for cryptography as a service. Liquid Escrow, which was like an escrow service. And some like leasing markets, which improve developer flexibility. The community comes in and builds services and deploys them on the DAPP network. And we deploy services of our own, but they do too. And if a base layer protocol solves one of these issues that we're solving, it says, hey, we've got native oracles now. That's great. That's okay. Now the DAPP network can be used for other services, and those other services can use the new base layer oracles. Whatever, it's fine. The DAPP network will grow with the world rather than like issue a product, and if somebody comes out with a competing product, oh no, we're in trouble, right? Mm-hmm. The whole idea is it's this network of services where I as a dev can come and build a new service that I need and offer it, right, in an incentivized manner, free market manner, decentralized manner, offer it to all the other DAPP developers out there. And if it's a useful service, it catches on. I think that kind of network will always be like a step ahead in terms of development from the layer one protocols, where they have to be so much more careful, for lack of a better word. They have to be, it's so much more intense to try to build in a base layer solution on a running blockchain with, its own inherent scalability problems already. So I think we're ahead of the curve and are going to continue to be ahead of the curve in that respect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, totally. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, you guys have proven that already. Variety of different use cases, variety of different products or services there. So I want to take a step kind of outward, if you will, into the more macro crypto environment. You're, obviously somebody who knows crypto well, knows the tech behind it, right? But I think since the last time we talked, which was probably consensus of last year, so coming up on a year now, right?
Jeez.
A lot has changed.
Sadly, I was at consensus. Yes.
Yeah. A lot has changed, right? A lot has evolved. What just generally in crypto are you seeing that's, super exciting to you right now?
I love the developments in Bitcoin. It might sound boring to those looking for like new opportunities, but Bitcoin is still my primary thing. And I probably would be Bitcoin only if it wasn't for the fact that I was like banned from these platforms that I mentioned with no appeal. And by like some backroom worker, I don't even know their name, they sent me a faceless email. And, it could have been based on how good their lunch was. Like they could have been in a bad mood. And there's no way out of it. And people could lose their livelihoods that way. So I think we need to decentralize more than just money. But that said, money's pretty important, right? And Bitcoin is my favorite. And there are some exciting developments coming out. I'm watching closely with Taproot and Schnorr signatures, which initially will provide a number of benefits and ultimately privacy enhancing benefits. I like the ideas like Better Hash, which lets, how people say mining pools are centralized and there's a fight about that.
Mm-hmm.
Better Hash lets you be in a mining pool, but the mining, how do I explain this in a simple way? The mining pool does not have power over the resulting hashing. In other words, it does not give the mining pool owner like centralized power, even though there's a pool. Because it separates out part of what's going on to the individual machines. I could probably come up with a better explanation.
No, that makes sense.
It's a really cool. That's really cool. I've heard Blockstream talking about like privacy, ZK Snark side chains, like a zero knowledge privacy on Bitcoin side chains. There are just some really great developments, I think, in Bitcoin, and I love Lightning. Astute crypto fans might have noticed I have like a little Casa node running up on the shelf up there.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, see it.
The Lightning node, yeah. And I use it all the time. I don't know I guess there are risks. I've never encountered them, but I don't know why people say that it's like Lightning doesn't work. I guarantee you those people have never used Lightning because I send payments all the time. And while it doesn't have the adoption we'd want, it's getting better and better and better and better. And you think about over the last 2 years, the number of Lightning implementations and wallets and apps and things that have come out is really staggering. Ethereum fans will hit back at me and say there's a lot more Ethereum projects. That's true. But Lightning is a really cool piece of technology, in my opinion. So I'm really excited about Bitcoin. And just, you know what? My main hope as we hopefully go into another positive market cycle, not financial advice, don't buy crypto based on these words. My other hope is that we see a little bit more discernment, a little bit less. I don't think we probably will, right? Dentacoin is going to go to $1 trillion.
Right.
And, which just sets us up for another fall, right? But I hope that the market will begin to get smarter about these protocols and about the potential of blockchain and about the nonsense uses of blockchain that people put out there. I want people to educate yourselves. Don't buy into the hype. Realize, learn cognitive biases. Realize that if you hold something, you are multiple X times more likely to think it's a good thing. As soon as you buy a bit of a token, the company's plan starts to look really good. You got to be aware of those biases so that you don't get burned.
Yeah, I think to that point, and a great example would be the ICOAlert office, right? At one point, a lot of us were invested heavily in EOS, and there was a lot of hype going around that ecosystem. I think they're doing a ton of great things, but you do start to have that echo chamber of this is going to go to $1 billion, right? This is going to go to
$1 million,
specifically 1,000, right? But there was one point that that you made, I think just on a Twitter post, maybe we were just exchanging back and forth kind of the idea of like having fanatics within these ecosystems. I think I was saying something about how they've kind of gone to like religious zealotry almost.
For sure.
And you made the important distinction that, you know, some of these ecosystems, you need fanatics, right? These are the people pushing your products out to the masses, to the early adopters, to then have that next step to the main pool of people. So kind of touch on that. Why do these ecosystems need fanatics, as you put it?
Yeah, traditional businesses need fanatics as well. Movements need fanatics. Nonprofits need fanatics. You know, like there's before movement really starts to pick up, there's like this core of devoted followers, right? Like the 12 disciples, if you will, willing to die for the cause, you know, and it, like, it's those fanatics that, like, maybe not everyone picks up on their fanaticism, but they say, hey, this does sound like a pretty cool idea. So, and you know what, you touched on religion, and it's really interesting. You know, I come from a sort of a religious background. I'm not religious anymore. But I say sort of religious. I was devout. I was a seminarian. I preached and I taught New Testament Greek. So extremely religious. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to not be religious anymore. Right? I'm not making fun of those people. I'm just saying that there are distinct similarities to the crypto space, and specifically to cults. You know, like there's this community dynamic, and arguably a lot of people in society who have left religion will flock towards like replacements for it, like other communities that fulfill their needs for community, right? And we kind of become tribalistic. We say, you know, oh, EOS is better no matter what, or Ethereum's better no matter what, or Tron or Bitcoin, or like some coin no one else has ever heard of is better than everything else. And we put up comparison charts with check marks and X's, and start, you know, releasing armies of trolls on Twitter, and you know, which also happens in religious circles, right? You know, you never want to go to the crypto Reddit. It looks like a religious cult Reddit. You know, we shut down. We use tactics for toxic branding tactics, all sorts of things going on. There's very little honest debate sometimes. Very little honesty about projects. That I really like companies, obviously. I really like companies that kind of have their heads down building, and they don't tend to just, you know, trumpet what they're doing all over the place without actually building anything. But the space has a lot of cult-like feel towards it, you know, like the personality cults, right? Look at all the Vitalik fans and Justin fans. It's not necessarily Vitalik's fault or Justin's fault. Right. And there's even like a little mystique over Satoshi, right? And the Craig Wright fans, you know, it's all the characteristics of that cult, you know, and just watch out for any moment where they tell you to start mixing stuff in a Kool-Aid, because it's very similar. But you know what? It's those kind of movements, those fanatical movements, that really can change the world. And as long as they don't go off the rails, some of these products are going to get big and build things that really help people in the way that we've all wanted.
Yeah, it's easy to get wrapped up in that for sure. And when there's a token that's traded on the public market that, as kind of you get deeper, goes up or down, it gets really difficult to separate, you know, that investment or kind of that cult feeling from reality in a lot of cases. So that's a good point. I think I agree. We see that a lot in crypto. You know, you're somebody who has interacted within the crypto space for a long time, right? You're not somebody who just simply buys Bitcoin and holds it, right? Or somebody who, you know, doesn't interact with crypto from a tech standpoint or really a full-time standpoint. So my question to you is, other than the Argent wallet that you talked about, are there other applications or services or businesses out there that you use on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that, you know, you look at and are kind of like, why doesn't everybody use this?
No.
Just Argent?
Other than Bitcoin. No, I mean, Bitcoin and Lightning. Argent maybe for DeFi. And there's a couple DeFi solutions on EOS. They're harder to use still, but you know, I think that ultimately we'll have products where it's like, why doesn't everyone use this? But right now there's just these hangups. I like a Twitter replacement blockchain app I use, Peepeth. It, it doesn't have many users, and maybe that's partly because it doesn't have a mobile app. It solved a lot of the UX problems. There's no gas. You don't have to pay gas. You don't have to, all kinds of other things. You don't have to like wait around for transactions to post usually. It solved a lot of blockchain usability issues, and it's still not very popular for the simple reason, I think, that there's no mobile app. Who wants to use a Twitter that doesn't have a mobile app, right? And so it's these little obstacles that we need to get past. I think there's a lot fewer obstacles than there used to be for someone to really develop an app that is usable in and of itself. And we need to start focusing on just making a good app, rather than like, well, we use the latest blockchain interoperability, sharding, proof of existence, whatever. Your user doesn't care at all, right? In fact, we thought we could make users care about privacy and things like that, and maybe censorship resistance, but until they're forced to, they don't care about that either, right? What they care about is a good experience. So focus on making a good experience. I named Argent because it was a good experience. There need to be more apps that are good experience. And yeah, what about you guys? What are some apps that you use that you think I should use besides EOS nights?
That's a good question, man. I wasn't expecting the answer back. Q, do you have one off the top of your head?
There's obviously security issues, right, with a lot of what we're talking about. But I think Dice offered some type of DeFi component where you were able to take the casino winnings that they would have, and it would go into a kind of account or a pool that would be dispersed among people who staked to that ecosystem. So you stake EOS and you get a dispersion of whatever they made for that casino that time. I think, did we lose Pete there?
Oh, have you lost me?
Oh no,
we're good.
Okay, no. Well, so
I was just being very still.
No, you're. Yeah. So honestly, like, and at some point, I was getting some type of ridiculous amount of percentage. But there's obviously security. It was off chain, to be honest. Like it wasn't happening on chain. So the Dice team had my EOS, but I think there are applications like I think casino dApps get a bad rap. I think the use case there is you're able to split more evenly with that casino. So that's one that I used.
Yeah, I've been more impressed with the CeFi, to be honest. I think 2019 was a big year for your BlockFi and for your Celsius.
For sure.
But BlockFi I've kind of had issues with in the past, but Celsius has really done a good job. I think the fact that they do things from mobile phone pretty much, solely is big, as, we see more and more people just pretty much interact on mobile phones versus desktops. So that's been a big one. I think that's been, they've been on the front lines of kind of showing people that crypto is more than just buying something and holding it underwater until the price, gets to a point where you want to try and sell it. They've done a good job of pushing forward kind of crypto as a broader asset class as they've onboarded simple lending and borrowing services. The other one I would say is it's a futures exchange, so it's very different. It's also obviously very centralized, but futures and margin trading is one that has grown in popularity quite a bit in 2018 and 2019, and Bybit does a really good job of kind of breaking down what can often be a difficult user experience for people who aren't, say, classically trained or educated in margin trading, and they've set things up in a way that it's very clean, it's very smooth. You don't have to kind of worry about a lot of the, say, intricacies or financial definitions if you weren't traditionally in that. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, I got one more for you, Pete. I got one more. I'm super bullish on AR, VR. So I think Decentraland's launch here coming up within the next couple of weeks. I think you see a lot of trading volume around decentralized real estate and like VR real estate. That's like, I think one plot of land sold for like $1,500 the other day. And while I don't want to get consumed with the price, I think I like the idea of multiverses, and I think they mesh well with NFTs. Because I think for a long time, like CryptoKitties got super popular and people we're super behind the idea of being able to control your own assets. But if we get to the point where we do have these multiverses where you can hop in almost like the Matrix or a Ready Player One for those that don't know, and you're able to show off these NFT items in a different way than just say like a line of code, like, oh, there's my CryptoKitty, right? And I have to go to CryptoKitty's website. But if you can then show the CryptoKitty within this multiverse environment of Decentraland, I think it's a natural kind of combination there. So that would be
for sure. Yeah. Great categories all. Remember when we all thought that STOs might be the next thing? And then DeFi came out of, I guess, left field. I'm sure a lot of people saw it, but it kind of enhancing the idea of owning money and using money without third parties involved. And I think it's going to grow pretty big. But let's talk about really fast. I know that's normally the thing the interviewer says. Let's talk about really quickly the mass adoption that users won't see. Because I said scalability and UX, but for a certain segment of these mass adoption potential items we're talking about, UX doesn't mean good user experience, but it means good developer experience. And that's businesses and corporations that want to move parts of their business on blockchain for reasons of security or like permanence or compliance or whatever. Some people argue that eventually we'll be certifying documents and things and notarizing them on blockchain, and that every business will be expected to do this. Those businesses need to integrate solutions, and the user is going to have no idea, right? The user of whatever product those businesses have, even if it might not even be a user-facing product. That's going to be a space for blockchain adoption. Businesses and corporations that have been looking into blockchain, getting their feet wet, adding components, decentralizing parts of their stack, adding advantages, and you won't see it, right? So when we talk mass adoption, we're not necessarily talking about one like killer app on your phone. That that would be great, right? It'd be cool to show off. Hey guys, I was right about the blockchain thing. It's like Blockbook has replaced Facebook, or whatever. Or FaceBlock, I guess, is better, right? But that sounds like a censorship protocol. But
Pete's bringing up a whole bunch of ideas here, man. He's got 3 different companies all in one.
But that's the mass adoption doesn't necessarily need UX.
Yeah.
In that case, it needs to be good for developers. Businesses need to be confident that they can use it, that it's reliable, that it's easy to integrate, that's flexible, that it's workable, that it does what they need. So I think there's 2 paths that I see forward. There's like the user app path that we've been talking about, and then there's the business service, business component path.
Yeah, the B2B services certainly aren't as sexy, right? Like IBM's on national television talking about their blockchain all the time, and nobody gives a rat's ass about what that commercial says, right? But if an application feature that featured blockchain in their commercial, we'd be like, what the hell is going on? So I think that's a super fair point. Mike, did you have anything on that? Because I think we can do a whole episode on like Wittgenstein. I really like your personality and your history and how you blend kind of, and I'm a history buff too, so I really enjoy the history kind
fist
of
bump.
narratives that fist bump there, boom, that you go down. So Mike, did you have anything before I ask this question on what he just said?
Run with it.
Okay, so I would like to get into that Twitter ban, because I think a lot of people don't know the actual scenario behind kind of what's leading you to not just be interested in decentralized money, but decentralized apps like Peepith, or I think there's Twetch, and I think Voice is coming out pretty soon. But take us through really quickly that instance and a couple instances before that have happened with Wittgenstein that have really pushed you towards these decentralized apps.
Yeah, so I tend to not be a super controversial person. I have controversial ideas, but I don't flame people on Twitter and post like sensual images all the time. And not a very bannable Twitter account. Maybe it's because I was in crypto and didn't have more than a certain threshold of followers. But I was at ICOAlert at the time, and I can't pinpoint any behavior that caused this. I got an email. I didn't tweet that often. I got an email that said, your account has been suspended for, quote, multiple or repeat violations. No info on the type of violation. And said no appeal will be considered. There's just no no reply, no appeal. And we had a friend at Twitter. I don't know if they were in a very powerful position. We contacted. That didn't lead anywhere. I just made a new account. And my old account's still accessible, but it's suspended for no reason that's known to me. Like it could have just been, one of the problems of this social media, and social media is going to have problems for a long time, right? There's people involved, is that someone cannot like your product or what you do or who you are or something you said, and then like enlist a bunch of people to report you or flag your posts, even if they're legitimate. Even if you're saying, hey, I had coffee at May's and it was great, right? And they flag it, they report it. And if enough people report that as inappropriate, the algorithm will give you a ban or shut you down or whatever. And these companies have to do that for efficiency. They have to run on algos. They can't have people going through every single post, right? But the result is you end up with a bunch of people that, it's a small number of people, small enough that no one else cares. You end up with people that are unjustly like kicked off or banned. On Upwork, it was a client paid me with multiple credit cards because the client was trying to maximize rewards for some sort of offer American Express was having. So they paid me, you get a certain amount of rewards. So they paid me with like in $100 batches, and they were collecting points. And that doesn't hurt Upwork, but Upwork didn't like that. And they banned the client and they banned me. And they sent an email saying, your account has been suspended permanently. We understand this is not the outcome you were hoping for.
Not ideal.
Please be advised that no reply to this email will be like read or considered or something like that. And I have the original email. I can send it to you. And then PayPal, I got an email, and I was talking to this guy who wrote this terrible blockchain book at the Vegas conference. I forget what the conference was even called, Scaling Blockchain or something. And he said, if you're banned from one platform, I can believe that you were unjustly banned, but banned from 3 platforms? No way. There's something up with you. And like maybe I'm starting to doubt, starting to think maybe these platforms communicate with each other. But PayPal sent me an email saying it was like the risk evaluation team, maybe it was crypto related, said our risk department has decided to no longer do business with you. That was it.
Yep.
And
what?
Yeah, and the PayPal CFO, former CFO, had a tweet recently where he tweeted a similar letter from Bank of America, where Bank of America wrote the PayPal CFO and said, we've decided to no longer have you as a customer. And he was complaining about it. And I replied, like, that's funny. That's what your company did to me. That blew up. And it became clear from the responses. I mean, blew up for me is like, 7,000 engagements or whatever. But it became clear from the responses that other people have had this happen to them. And in some cases, they've lost a lot of money because PayPal just takes it. And we need solutions for fraud and things, but committees and algorithms alike both have problems. Algorithms, they don't understand context and you can't really appeal. And committees, they're just fickle. Humans are fickle and manipulatable, and they don't give a damn about your life. So if it comes up, if you trade on that exchange, that futures exchange, and you have, $10 billion in assets on the exchange, all right, they probably wouldn't do it if you had $10 billion. But if you had a smaller amount.
Funny how that works.
And yeah, right, exactly. And like an issue came up. The guy who reviews your case might be, like, he might not like your face. There's all kinds of things that there's all kinds of things that could get in the way and make you be unjustly banned, and you have no idea why.
Yeah.
We need to figure out some sort of solution for this, in my opinion. Maybe there's not a perfect solution, but we need to figure out something.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be something. I mean, I think in the case of the social media sites, it's kind of a fault of time and resources, right? I mean, I think there are people out there who need banned, but as you said, when you plug that algorithm in, it's never going to work perfectly. So, this kind of fault of time around customer service or whatever the case may be there is an issue. And with banks, I feel like banks, I've run into the same issues when, say, selling crypto and transferring money into the bank or just simply sending a bank wire, right? And they want to know what it's for. If you tell them it's for purchasing cryptocurrency, they're never going to push that wire through. So, you almost have to kind of lie to get business done there. But from the bank's standpoint, it's just not worth the risk. The regulation, in their opinion, is still too much up in the air, that they would just rather not deal with any crypto businesses, flatly and lose that revenue versus, getting fined hundreds of millions of dollars because maybe some sort of KYC or AML setup they have does not properly, account for crypto. I think it's interesting because in the bank's case, right now you have Silvergate Bank, who is pretty much going to go public around being the bank for crypto. They even went as far as launching like a giant network for liquidity for major institutions who want to trade crypto, but can't get the necessary margin required on $100 million Bitcoin position or $500 million Bitcoin position. So you're going to see winners come out of these deficits that traditional companies or non-crypto companies, don't, kind of take advantage of. So on the social media,
think about like Blockbuster and Netflix, right? They didn't move, and Kodak. I didn't mean to cut you off, but the Kodak actually invented a digital camera early on, and the boss, the brass, the board, whatever, said no one's going to move away from film, and they had the opportunity to step in and revolutionize the camera space and dominate. Right now, Kodak is a measly little company compared to a lot of their competitors, right? And they didn't do that. They were shut down. And Blockbuster, same thing. They must have thought they had a good thing going. Now they're out of business because they were replaced by a new tech. And it's just like you're saying, all of these old companies, there will be many that won't embrace the new technology, and it's at their own peril.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So looking at social media then, right, we're about 3 or 4 days away from the beta launch for Voice, which is on EOS, right? We're all very familiar with that. What do you expect to come out of the beta, and what do you expect to come out of Voice as, this blockchain based social media platform? Do you think it could be a solution to a lot of the issues we see with other social media platforms that aren't blockchain based?
I think it could be one of the solutions. We have a lot of social media options right now, obviously. Some people don't have Facebook. I don't. Some people don't have Twitter. Some people use LinkedIn. I don't anymore. Some people have TikTok because they're young enough. And I like to say that TikTok fashion has proved that Back to the Future 2 was actually right. It was just a couple of years behind, because it's crazy the TikTok fashion that my family gets into. But all these social networks, like, they all serve different use cases and they have different policies. I think that Voice can fill a niche, and that is a niche for people that want maybe more serious content, not necessarily entirely serious content, but focus on, it seems like more serious content, and with verified individuals and entities you're talking with, like a public forum where there's people are putting skin in the game. We know this idea to do something with China coronavirus came from Dan Larimer, that kind of skin in the game. And rather than having some guy who's got a rude mud crab,
oh wow, crab
classy.
Crab's listening right now.
You can hide. Oh yeah, for sure. You can hide behind. What is this, live? No. Right? You can hide behind your name, and I think that's important too. I think people need a place to be able to express things privately, but or from a place of privacy. But Voice isn't going to be that. So I think Voice will fill a niche. I don't think it's going to be the take-all winner of social media and the internet and everything.
Yeah.
Hold on, I gotta go sell my EOS real quick. Give me 1 second.
We're still in. I think that you make a good point there, right? Some of my favorite follows are anonymous, so Voice is not going to have that availability. So there is going to be, some issues there. But we're coming to the end of the episode here. I kind of wanted to get some rapid fire questions. Sure. We did have some from the community that kind of came in late, so we already touched on some of these. Rude Mudcrab said, you had that guy peed on. No, I'm just joking. Brandon said, question about liquid chains. Should every project have their own chain? You can touch on it in like one sentence if you can.
Depends. Voice beta is going to be on multiple chains, both public and private, and might go to EOS mainnet later, but it won't only have EOS mainnet. Businesses will want customizable solutions that might involve multiple chains that can be public or their own.
Okay. Jason Stalling says LiquidApps announced a partnership with Wax. Why is LiquidApps needed on sister chains with basically free resources?
Because the DAPP network isn't just solving like resource scalability issues. It provides a lot of other services like oracles and databases and interoperability and Docker container running at all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more utility than just resources. That said, if Wax gets super, super, super popular, they might have resource issues. So it's good to be prepared.
Got it. Where does the name Wittgenstein come from?
It comes from the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, which is he's one of my favorites. You can listen to the first episode of an old podcast named Wittgenstein's Table to find out a lot about his life. He changed philosophy in the 20th century, not just once, but twice. People talk about early and late Wittgenstein like they're different people. Great thinker.
I remember old times at ICOAlert when we were just starting up the roundtable, and you had started Wittgenstein's Table around the same time, but I didn't know that the Wittgenstein's Table actually had some kind of context. So I was like, well, we just named the roundtable. Can't you just name it something else?
So there's Wittgenstein's Table. The concept is like if you measure a table with a ruler, you're also measuring the ruler with the table. Like the ruler might not be reliable. Right, you're kind of like if you hold a foot ruler up to a 10-foot table and it's like a half of it, then you've proven the ruler's wrong, right? So you just thought I was cramping your style. It's like, well, they've got the round table, so I've got Wittgenstein's table. It's square.
Yeah. Well, can you blame me for not knowing about Wittgenstein's table?
No. Most people don't know about Wittgenstein even.
Got it.
Yeah. For those of you out there listening that haven't heard Wittgenstein's Table, it's got to be probably the most fascinating crypto podcast you can listen to versus just, people asking like how you got into crypto back, in 2014 kind of thing over and over again. So check out Wittgenstein's Table.
I might bring it back at some point. I tried at the beginning of the year, but then I got hired by LiquidApps and started doing everything EOS developer courses. And by the way, Dappiness plug.
Okay.
It's related to that social media. I had one more story. It tails off something we were talking about with that futures exchange. Dappiness is a little dev shop that Evan Schindler, also from ICOAlert, and Zach Gall, also from ICOAlert, and I founded. And we got like the Google warning. You know when you go in Chrome and it says deceptive website? It's like red with white letters. It says this website might be is trying to steal your data, right? We got that warning because of basically a mistake. And we couldn't get rid of it. We fixed the issue and we could not get rid of the warning for like months until Evan reached out to Google with an email saying, hey, I've got like $10,000 of ad spend here that I really want to spend on Google ads, but it won't let me because of this site warning.
Wow.
That day it was fixed. That day support got back. And I mean, we didn't really spend $10,000 on Google ads, but it goes to show you like, you can't, like there are people who aren't going to be able to do that. And they'll have their businesses shut down because of some, support team that can't handle their stuff.
In like 2 years, I feel like every single one of these tech companies is going to have a Wittgenstein task force just to take you down on all these various things. It's like Netflix deleted my list. They created this movie list for years and they just deleted it. But no,
the Layer One podcast just deleted my episode.
Yeah, right. But no, final question here for you. I know you got to run. We ask this to every guest. We need a recommendation for a book. It can be crypto related, non-crypto related. It can, you could have read it recently. What's one recommendation you would give?
Oh man, do you guys like sci-fi?
Definitely.
All right. I read recently the Hyperion. It's called the Kantos, the Hyperion series. Pretty amazing sci-fi series, gotta say. That's my recommendation because reading's important. I love reading books about philosophy and crypto and math and whatever. If you have to read a book about math or something professional, read How Not to Be Wrong. It's about applying math to your life so that you don't make terrible decisions. But when I read, I want to put myself in other shoes in other situations. There's a little study out there that says that reading fiction makes people better business people because it forces them to be in new situations and think about, like, predict the future and try to discover motives and things like that, right? And so I love sci-fi, and my recommendation is Hyperion, the whole series.
That's amazing, man. Well, we appreciate you coming on this episode. We had a great time. We knew we were going to have a great time, but it's great to have you on, man. And I think hopefully we can have you back on in 4 or 5 month time frame and hear what you guys are doing at LiquidApps, man.
Awesome. What's the Bitcoin price going to be then?
Oh, you tell us. You tell us.
No.
We're never going under 10K again.
I'm not a TA guy. At 5 months, let's see. That's it's what, 3 months, 2 months after halving. Oh man, we might be on a depressing post-halving dip, but it won't sting for long. So if next episode I'm like depressed, just remind me. We're coming out of it.
Just keep building. Just keep building. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. That's the motto here.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, yeah. Again, appreciate the time. We'll see you soon.
See you again.
Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to check out Layer 1 on all the audio and video platforms listed in the description. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next week.